Good evening. Welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, Supermac and Gibbo. It's Thursday night and all is well, lads. All is well, except not with the ASM. John, it's not sounding very good on the injury front for Allan Saint-Maximin. And it sounds, to be honest, as if, he might have played one of his, last games for Newcastle this season. It's been obviously reported that he's got an injury to his hamstring again. John, tell us more.
Yeah, and he seems to get bothered by hamstrings, doesn't he? He seems to it reoccurs, etc. From his point of view, it's come at a very unfortunate time because he's probably just had his best two games for Newcastle in his last two appearances. Luckily, if you're the club and you're bound to get injuries all the time, probably the position where we can stand it the most is out wide because of other people that are available there, like Murphy, like Gordon, like Joelinton and Anderson if you need them.
Yeah, but Joelinton will be cussing this fact, won't he? Because he doesn't really like playing out there, in all honesty.
Well,
I mean, in the middle.
Well, I prefer him in the middle. I don't know whether he likes playing.
I prefer him in the middle, but I'm quite happy for him to be playing wide left.
Of course,
in the similar circumstance to the second half against Brentford.
Yeah. I mean, he can play either position, but I think when he when he come in second half against Brentford and sat tight with Bruno, and they had the two guys that played up front, I thought who played their best stuff. He's a big item in there when he's in the centre of midfield, and the way that Patrick Vieira was. He's a big object to get round, and he sticks his foot in, and then he can drive into attack.
He's one of the best ball winners in the midfield of the Premier Division.
Yeah, all of a sudden he's become quite a brute up there, hasn't he? He's got
yes.
He's got quite a few bookings.
Yeah,
he's got about 11 bookings this season.
Yeah, but it's very effective.
But getting back to Maxi, I mean, it's tough because there's a lot of decisions got to be made by the club on who goes and who stays this summer. Maxi was obviously one of those where a decision had to be made. But it opens up the possibility of Gordon, who is very anxious to get a run in the team. Inevitably, before the end of the season, he's got to start being a name on the team sheet at the beginning of the game for a while to see if he holds the potential and blossoms in the potential he has. Miggy will be back shortly. You've already got Murphy. You've already got Joelinton. And Anderson, when he came on there second half, remember recently, he went out and played wide left in the second half of a game and did exceptionally well. So we are covered in the wide positions. But yes, nobody wants injuries to senior players because it's crucial. But Wall getting those on. Rashford, will he play again this season, etc., etc. They're happening all over the shop. But it's certainly not good news for Maxi. And obviously it's not good news for Newcastle because you want everybody fit. But it's probably a position where we can stand it. Whereas if we got one of the two centre-halves out, if we got Trippier out, if we got Botman out, it might hit us more.
I just want to relay a little bit of Steve Hasty's message. We were having a chat about this in our WhatsApp group today. And Steve made the point that ASM's a high-impact player who relies on his speed as well as twists and turns. But he's never stretched or tested himself since the Manchester City game back in September. He said he picked up a hamstring and calf problem not long after that. And Steve's view, which we've shared on this show with Mitch, has been that the latest injury is probably not, it's probably down to a number of factors. The previous injury that he had, his playing style, his fitness and conditioning, and again, something that Mitch has mentioned on the show, it's an area which he specialised in the past, which is that ASM has this desire really to do his own thing, fitness-wise, And John, you've probably seen this when you've been in the, looking on the computer. Malcolm, you might have seen this as well. But he does his own fitness on social media, running, sprinting, up hills, etc. And you've got to maybe question, is that something he's doing with the permission of the physios at the club, or is this him just being a free spirit, which is what Steve Bruce, encouraged? For me, what I'm trying to suggest, Malcolm, is you've been a footballer in a dressing room, albeit at a slightly different time. But looking at it from that point of view, should he not really just be following the advice of the medical staff instead of
Yes.
getting his mobile phone out and doing what the hell he wants in his own spare time?
Yeah,
he's been encouraged to do that by the club. I don't know, but you would imagine that sprinting is probably not the best thing for a hamstring. I know in the past
it's not. No, it's sprinting that causes it. Yeah, and I'm racking my brain trying to think back when he sprinted.
Now, Malcolm. Now, we haven't got long enough. This program's just
good night from me and Gibbo.
It's only an hour long, Malcolm. So be careful, mate.
All right, but I feel a bit sorry for him, but in this situation where his hamstring has been somewhat of a constant problem on an on-off basis. And so he really should listen to the medical people.
You cannot think, though, Malcolm and Steve, you can't think that when he's not doing this extra training. He's not doing it quietly on his own. He's doing it publicly. So if it was against what the physios wanted, surely Eddie Howe would clamp down on him and say, hey, I've seen your videos. You cut that out. Surely he has to have the backing of the physios to do this, because you wouldn't do it publicly. You might do it privately because you think this is going to benefit me personally. I believe in it. I'm going to do it. But you wouldn't put videos out there. And if you do, you wouldn't be naive enough to think the club don't see them. So,
yeah, John, I understand what you're saying. Do you not think, though, that he's just an individual who doesn't give a stuff what other people think, what other people are saying, what other people...
I think that can be harsh on him because, can you be that in the modern day? Because the first thing that happens is you're transferred. If you don't give a shit about what is thought by, say, Eddie Howe or something, then you don't...
Has he not been in Eddie Howe's thinking with regards to this summer moving him on?
Well, he's been playing him recently in those 2 super games he had. He had other wingers available, including Gordon, and he played him and then kept him in the side. So, I think we've got to keep a bit of a balance about this, about what the club are thinking.
Yeah. Are you sure he wasn't putting him in the shop window?
No, I don't think we can afford to. You wouldn't do that anyway. You would cover them up so they didn't know. But you couldn't afford to put a guy in the shop window when you're trying to get into the Champions League. If you're 11th in the table, you can put people in the shop window because you're not going down and you're not going up. But if you're 3rd or 4th and you're going for the Champions League, having been a relegation club for 15 years, you can't afford to carry somebody in a shop window. You've got to play what you consider your best team. I know that Maxi makes you choke, Malcolm, but there's no need for all
that. The cold is getting the better of me.
No, I think...
Not helped by the conversation of Maxi, yes.
I think Howe picks his best team in his eyes every game. Because he wants, that's the only way you're going to get in the Champions League, by fielding your best team. We've got to field our best team at Aston Villa on Saturday because that's massive. You couldn't play somebody in the hope that he might get a transfer because there's he's disappeared there. There's too much at stake right now on the rest of the season that will impact on next season. Because we've got to finish in the top 4, else next season we're not in the Champions League. Yeah. So the 11 he puts out at Aston Villa, and we know it won't include Maxi because he's not fit, and it won't include Almiron. But it'll be what he thinks is his best side, without a shadow of doubt.
Yeah, I mean, his plus point is Almiron is back in training, been back in training all week as well, John. So, looks as if he may well recover for the game at the weekend.
Yeah, if he does, he'll start on the bench, I would suspect. Oh, goodness knows. Stop me being tempted to second guess something Eddie will do, because
he couldn't get back in, not on recent performances. You'd have to be on the bench.
Also, on the length of time he's been out, the way to introduce them back is through a half hour in a game, isn't it? As a sub at 60 or 70 minutes. The way we've been playing 5 wins on the trot, he's been out, 4 weeks, maybe about 4 weeks. You can't walk straight back in the side. You might walk straight back in the relegation side.
But also, I don't think that with those 5 consecutive wins, you don't go dropping somebody just to fit a player in.
Of course not. I mean, you pick at the moment the players that are red hot. You pick your best 11, as we say. And the next 2 games, without thinking further ahead than that, the next 2 games are absolutely critical that you put your best side out, because you've got Aston Villa away, who are going like an express train, and then you've got Spurs at home, who are genuine contenders with us for one of the Champions League places. So, these next 2 games are, I know we say they're all massive now because of our league position, but the next 2 carry extra weight, probably.
They certainly do. And this is probably about the worst time to meet Aston Villa, because they're absolutely at their peak.
Yeah, they are.
But then I suppose they're looking at Newcastle and saying, well, they're at their peak.
That's the worst time to play Newcastle. Yes, it is for both clubs. It is for both clubs.
No doubt about it. Okay.
I think it's going to be a fascinating game.
It's going to be a great run-in. It is. It's going to be a fantastic run-in. Gary says, does Supermac think or want Arsenal to win the Premier League?
I would rather Arsenal win than Man City.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Oh,
but
certainly.
Is that because, like me, you're sick of Man City winning it 4 years out of 5, so we need a change, or is it because you're an ex-Arsenal player, or is it both?
Both. Yes. Yeah, both. And also, there is one other factor as well. I like to see young managers succeed, and Arteta, he is a young manager. This is his first opportunity in management, having worked under Guardiola, and the apprentice has taken on the master, and I think it's been fascinating this season.
And last season, Malcolm, there was a big sort of amongst national press or pundits. Is he good enough for Arsenal when they failed to make the Champions League, when they finished out the top 4? Because I think they lost to Spurs and then they lost to us up here, didn't they? Mm-hmm. And they didn't finish in a Champions League position. And everybody's saying, "Oh, is Arteta good enough?"
They were seriously asking the questions about him.
Yeah, they were. They were.
Yeah, and more like I think is, for heaven's sake, give him a bit of time. But look how he's responded just after the one summer.
Yeah, that's going to be a fascinating, because it's a 2-horse race, of course, but that's going to be a fascinating run-in because of Liverpool getting back at Arsenal and taking 2 points away from them, 1 point instead of 3, and Man City still to play Arsenal. It's going to be a fascinating run-in between those 2 as well, and we've still got Arsenal to come, of course, haven't we?
Yeah, I'm afraid I personally think that Arsenal's chances of winning the league have diminished with that result. And I think Newcastle will beat them, and I think Manchester City will beat them. And I think they'll get pipped at the post.
Well, that comeback from being 2-0 up at Liverpool was a real kick. I think there's no question about that. And I tell you what, but for the goalkeeper, they would have ended up losing it. Yeah, because Ramsdale made a couple of great saves. At the end, he was fabulous. I mean, I know that's what he's there for. That's a famous phrase when of a manager, isn't it? Your goalkeeper was wonderful. Well, that's what he was there for. I mean, we've had it with Pope on several occasions this season. Yes. Where your goalkeeper earns his corn. But I thought I thought that goalkeeper, who was vying with Pope to be the number 2 England goalkeeper behind Pickford, he was terrific at Liverpool and he produced some great saves.
Yeah, Malcolm, we've had a fashion request there. Keith likes your jumper. Any idea where you got it?
I think James Bolam given it when he finished doing that. You know, they
like me, lads.
Yeah, I went no.
When the boat came in,
Catherine Cookson one when the boat come in. You know.
Yeah, I can't see this as a serious question. To be honest,
you never know, Malcolm. You never know.
The last time I saw a jumper like that, Jack Fairbrother was wearing it in the 50s Cup final.
I think we'll move on, Malcolm. We'll move on. John, please tell me the story about us being reinterested in Ekitike is rubbish. Surely we wouldn't go back. Well, it's got to be rubbish. It's we're not going to be interested in the player who's been a flop at PSG and who turned us down.
Well, please let it be rubbish, because he didn't turn us down once. He turned us down about 3 times, kept us dangling on his string. His agent was an absolute disgrace. He was a young lad coming here. It was a bad choice at the time, because he would have come here as backup to Wilson instead of Isaac, probably. So thank goodness he didn't come. But going to PSG, does he think he was going to walk into that side at his young age, etc., etc.? No, I wouldn't want to have him having gone through what we've gone through. We've persisted with players in the past, going back to sign them like Isaac and Bruno and Botman, very much so. But there weren't players that were turning us down left, right, and centre. They're players that we couldn't eke out of their club at that particular time. But no, and I think his opportunity's gone, because we got Isaac, and the appearance of Isaac in the first team seems to fire the hunger in Callum Wilson, and he's come back full of it. And we've got 2 centre forwards at the moment with 10 goals or 11 goals and 10 goals and 8 goals between them. That's the total of each, without either playing every game this season. We're not going to go out and get another centre forward. I don't think we're going to do that.
No.
Because it's not priority. We're going to get a left back. We're going to get a defensive midfield player. We're going to get an attacking midfield player. I don't think we're going to go and get him. And no, I don't. And what's more, I don't want us to.
No, me neither. I've got to be perfectly honest. Once he's turned you down, you don't really want to go back. Another question, Malcolm, I'll ask you this one from Tom Dixon. He says, in your spare time, do you go and watch Gateshead? He says they're playing great football at the moment. They're on a hell of a run. Malcolm, you go to North Shields, though, don't you?
Yeah, I go to North Shields, yes. And watch them. They've been doing really well, North Shields. They're 7th in the in this new league that they've gone into. And I've thoroughly enjoyed watching them. But I have to say that Gateshead, yeah, they've done really well. Probably much better in the playing in the cup.
I mean, to be truthful, Malcolm, I follow them so much. I'm still like president there, and I ran the club and owned it for 11 years. Mike Williamson's a manager who I knew ever so well when he played for Newcastle.
Yeah,
just about every player on the side was in the academy, and they are on a run at the moment from being in a relegation position. They've got an injury list of 10 players, and bear in mind you're a non-league, so you haven't got a huge squad. They have now won 5-6 on the trot. They win every away game like us, like Newcastle United. They win every away game. I mean, they went to Altrincham at the weekend, won 2-0 at Altrincham, and we thought they'll go to Eastleigh last night, was it? And they're in a playoff situation to go in the Football League. And they went to Eastleigh last night, having played 2 nights earlier on their travels. We'll talk about a lot of travelling for Newcastle. On their travels, they were down to Altrincham, then they go to Eastleigh. If you get any further away, you're in Europe. I mean, you know, we're waiting to get in Europe. Gateshead were almost in Europe last night with this team. They go down there, they're in a playoff situation, and they win 5-2. They won 5-2.
Yeah, remarkable.
They won about 6-7 on the trot. They're suddenly not in a relegation fight. They've gone above, they're almost halfway, and they've gone above Halifax, who they're going to play in the trophy final. So that tells you that they've got a real chance in the trophy final. I'm absolutely thrilled to bits for them. And for the owners.
Do you think they'll beat Halifax, John?
I think they could easily beat Halifax in a one-off. And this is, the trouble is that they can't put out the regular first team, because about 4 of them are on loan from other clubs, Malcolm, and they've already played. They've already played in the competition for the other club earlier, so they haven't. Half their side in the trophy is not the regular side that's playing in the National League. So to have reached the final and beaten Barnet the last time out, I know it was on penalty, but it's phenomenal. And as a one-off, they are now above Halifax. So, and I know that a lot of players are going to be out of Wembley, but they're above Halifax, the side they're going to play. And Halifax were way above them about a month ago. So terrific. My other Tyneside side that I've been involved with since a kid, I used to go over and walk over the Redruth Bridge and go down to Redruth Park and watch Gateshead play when I was a schoolboy, when Newcastle were away and we didn't have the money in those days to go and support Newcastle away. So I watched every home game with Newcastle and walked over the bridge and watched Gateshead in the old 3rd Division North. And then ended up the first job I had reporting for the Chronicle. The first time I was there, before I went to Fleet Street, I reported on Gateshead when Bobby Mitchell, a Newcastle legend, was the manager. And then I bought the flipping club and ran it for 11 years. So they're very close to my heart, is in the same way as Newcastle are. So I'm well done for them. Well chuffed with them.
People who want an update on John, just as Alan, by the way, our tech guy who does our website, etc., and who's often in the chat, he had his operation today on his shoulder. I'm sure everybody will want to pass on their best wishes to John. The good news is that he has come through his surgery, but he is sleeping it off. All went well. So well done. Great news on John.
I'm delighted. He's a lovely, lovely man. He represents you at the gigs when I'm at Pumphrey's a lot. And he was telling me about having this operation. I'm absolutely thrilled that he's good. The last time he was sleeping it off, I think he'd been out with Nubby Solano. I don't think he was he was sleeping off an operation. The last time he told me he was sleeping it off. But I wish him well. He's a lovely, lovely man that is a big supporter of Newcastle, as all 3 have worn here. So all the best, John. Stick in, mate. We'll see you shortly.
All the best, John. BT says, what does Malcolm and Gibbo think of Lawrenson? As claims that Newcastle United are taking the fun out of football as he waded in on talk of gamesmanship.
Well, I think Liverpool are taking the fun out of football.
Well, okay, I mean, John, didn't Allan Hansen and his back 4 have the back pass rule changed because they used to utilise the back pass rule more than anybody else?
Totally. And but also it just shows an ignorance on it just shows an ignorance on doing your homework and watching things. I mean, you know, all this business is well about, you know, the dark arts. And doesn't every manager we play now jump on that? The referee must watch the dark arts of Newcastle. They'll slow the game down. They'll be in the 4th official's ear on the touchline, etc., etc., etc. We got it with Ten Hag when we played Manchester United up here. De Gea, in the first 10 minutes, dribbled the ball around his penalty area so much, I thought he was Stanley Matthews. I thought, are you going to clear it at any time in the near future? Like, and then we are accused of being this.
Yes, also, John, do you remember the Man United game? De Gea, in the first 5 minutes, he was wasting time.
Where's he been, Malcolm, when I just said that? That's just what
I know, but it was from the very first minute.
Yes, absolutely.
He was doing it.
First 10 minutes, he did it.
It wasn't as if it was later on in the game.
No, he did it from the start. But This is an
ridiculous.
These sides don't want to lose. These managers don't want to lose to Newcastle because last year they were a relegation side. It doesn't look good. Where the new kids on the block were smacking a lot of derrieres because there's only Liverpool twice and Man City beating us this season. So there's got to be a reason for that. It can't be because we've got a better manager than them. It can't be because we've done better in the transfer market than them. It can't be that we are better tactically than them because that impacts on them. So it's got to be that we're cheating, because that's what they're actually saying when they talk about dark arts and gamesmanship and taking the fun out of football. They're actually trying to say you're cheating, you're stretching the rules, you're doing this, you're doing that. By the way, the art of time wasting was hardly invented this season by anybody, never mind Newcastle United. The art of time wasting's gone on since football started. It's been there for that length of time.
Why on earth does Lawrenson pick out Newcastle when there are so many other clubs doing exactly the same?
Because you think it had never been done this season since till this season by Newcastle. You think we'd invented it?
Yeah,
well, that's just what
I think that that he's being set up for something.
I just think that the reason for saying this is the same reason why these 6 clubs in Liverpool is very much his club, why these 6 clubs wanted to break away European Super League, which would be ring-fenced with the fact that there was no relegation, so they would be the top 6 standing alone, making a fortune out of the game. Now that top 6 is not the top 6 anymore. Because Newcastle have smashed them, and I tell you what, Aston Villa could smash them next season. Liverpool could be out of the top 6 with Chelsea next season if they don't pull their pants up because of the way they are this season. Liverpool and Chelsea, despite Chelsea's money, could go out of the top 6, and Newcastle and perhaps Aston Villa could go in it. They don't like that, and that's what they're moaning about.
Yes, but I'll make the point again. I do not. Well, there is something obviously going on, and Lawrenson is happy to go along with it when he just picks on Newcastle. When, as you say, John, everybody's doing it.
It's part of the game.
Arsenal do it.
Can I ask you, when other sides take the ball in the last 10 minutes into the corner flag, to hold it because they're winning by a solitary goal? That is called being streetwise, being clever. You've done.
And they kick it up into row Z.
But if Newcastle did it, it would be the dark arts.
Yeah,
it's a joke. It's a joke.
I think that I just think that there's stuff going on, and it's all anti-Newcastle.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, halfway through the show, time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks also to Mr. Vicky's, handmade in Cumbria. These sauces are really hot stuff. You can order them by emailing info@mrvickys.co.uk or by telephoning 01768 210 102. Thanks to Neil and the guys at Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, nufcmatters.com. If you want to subscribe to the show, hit the subscribe button tonight. It is free. Hit the thumb up under the video to like the video and click share to share to your other social media. If you want to join the channel, hit join. There's 3 different tiers. Pick the one that suits you and help support the channel financially. If you want to pay a one-off membership fee of £25 and get these goodies, a scarf, a pen, a cup, and entry into the monthly draw, then go to NUFC Matters and look for membership pack. Failing that, get your smartphone and put it over the QR code and it will take you straight there. We're also a podcast and you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and other podcast providers. Usually goes up 24 hours after the show has finished. We also support the food bank on this channel. If you want to make a virtual donation today at the Matchday Bucket, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and you can make a deposit today. Don't forget to enter the Shearer raffle. There's 150 tickets, £1 per ticket, and you can win a limited edition signed Alan Shearer ball. Enter now at nufcmatters.com. If you have a look on our website, we've also got a vast range of mugs, t-shirts, cups, and whatever else takes your fancy. The Isaac t-shirt is proven popular this month, $16.99 plus delivery from nufcmatters.com. Don't forget as well, we do a range of events over the course of the year. We have Peter Beardsley, an up-close and personal evening at the Tynemouth Surf Cafe. Limited tickets remain, 25th of April. Get them now from Surf Cafe, tynemouth.co.uk or from ticketweb.uk. There's also an evening with Peter Beardsley on May the 19th at the Tyneside Irish Centre, and you can get tickets from newcastlelegends.com, and tickets are £50. Don't forget our end of season do takes place 27th of May, 7 o'clock at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets for that one are a tenner. NUFCmatters.com is where you can get your tickets for that. In June, Thursday the 1st of June to be precise, Rob Lee will be at Louis Liquor Store in the Big Market in Newcastle, and tickets for that are available direct from the venue. And an evening with Rob Lee, Lee Clark and John Beresford takes place the next evening on Friday the 2nd of June at the Grand Hotel in Gosforth. This is a charity event and tables are of £10, £700, and you can book them by contacting Natalie at heelandtoe.org.uk or visiting their website. In July, Gavin Peacock is in Newcastle on July the 10th at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets for that are available from nufcmatters.com. And he also takes an evening with at the Surf Cafe in Tynemouth on the 11th of July. So get your tickets direct from the venue for that one as well. And if you're a boxing fan, the Night of Champions, Ricky Hatton, Frank Bruno, Nigel Benn and Joe Calzaghe takes place at the Fed. And that will be taking place on the 16th of June. More dates to be added. Tickets from all those events, www.goldstarpromotions.co.uk. Okay, question from Tom Dixon, or he's highlighting a point which we spoke about off air. Premier League clubs have today collectively agreed to withdraw gambling sponsorship from the front of clubs' matchday shirts, becoming the first sports league in the UK. Malcolm, the keywords there are front of clubs matchday shirts. I mean, they're still allowing them on the sleeves.
Yes, they are, and I think it's all to do with the agreements that are in place and particular wording of from the Premier League, and so they're hoping, I think, that it'll keep everybody happy. I doubt it, but I think they're hoping that it will.
Yeah.
John? I think it's one of those things that's following a path in history, because nothing's ever new. Everything has happened before and then suddenly happens again. And if you go back quite a few number of years, guys, you'll remember when cigarettes were first banned from sport. I mean, the Formula One was virtually run by the whole cars and everything were Marlboro fags and whatever. Over all the cars, sponsored events. There was an outcry that, cigarettes aren't good for you, this shouldn't be happening, etc., etc. And slowly, they were squeezed out until it happened that there was absolutely no cigarette advertising allowed. And I think this is the first step towards that. The next thing that comes along is booze, and is that detrimental to your health, mental health and physical health. In this, and as Malcolm says, there's a situation where there's currently contracts with liquor companies where you can't just automatically say boom, but if you phase them off and they're just on sleeves, and they'll eventually go completely in the same way as cigarettes did, I would suspect. But it's just the meek and mild way of doing it. It's the usual thing. But nothing's new. And we went through all this procedure, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago with cigarettes in Formula One. And I think also the cricket guys can remember there was a lot of the cricket tournaments, perhaps it was the limited overs, etc., that were part of the cigarette boosted, and that disappeared completely.
Yeah. Okay. Embassy Snooker. I got free cigarettes in Sheffield outside the Crucible.
And he's still here to talk about it.
He's
so
still
that's
here to talk about it. Yeah. Thank you, Eric. He says, just like to say, I saw Malcolm play for Newcastle in the early 70s. Brilliant player. And wow, could he jump for a header? He will always be a legend at Newcastle. Very kind.
That's nice.
BT asks you a question, Malcolm. He says, regarding the issue with Anthony Gordon last weekend, what would Malcolm have done if he had been Gordon's manager? Now, obviously, the situation was explained quite easily by Eddie Howe. Breakdown of communication. Officials wouldn't allow the physio on. Gordon goes down. He's had a previous injury, which, you know, Eddie didn't want to make worse if it was bad. By the sounds of it, by the looks of it, Gordon was going down to waste a bit of time, wasn't injured. And that's where the confusion lay. He comes off. Gordon's not happy, thinking he's been substituted in the second half after only going on in the second half. Exchange of words, but it was all forgotten. I mean, it's water off a duck's back.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah. I do think that a footballer has a right to be a bit upset about being hauled off, but at the same time, he needed to reflect on the time that it was in the match. There was just minutes to go, and so it's another way of time wasting. But it's also a way of changing the side around a little bit just to make it more secure in the last few minutes. And I really don't think that he should complain. If you're going to do it privately, never make a public issue on it, because there's only one winner, and that will be the club.
I mean, yeah, I think it was a total misunderstanding, as you described, Steve, where he was down trying to buy Newcastle a bit of time because get his ankle looked after. They thought because his ankle had been his trouble and he had been out of the side recently, couldn't even be on the bench.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not going to risk this again, get him off because we want him fit. And both were doing it for the right reasons, but there was a misunderstanding. He'd only come on at half time. He must be as frustrated as it's possible to be at the fact that his early Newcastle career has been a stutter because of the League Cup tide that he was, because of the injury that he got, and because Eddie does that. He introduces a lot of players to the club slowly. He did it with Bruno when Bruno first come. He did it with Isaac until very recently, and it's happening with Gordon. But just two things from my point of view. First, I would rather see a player be angry at being substituted than be pleased to be substituted, because I've seen plenty of players that have been pleased.
Absolutely right. Yes, be upset about it, but don't get angry.
Yeah, but he's a ball.
Show it in public. You know, it's
he's
petulant.
I mean, I can just remember being his age if I concentrate for a day and a half. And I made mistakes at his age, and people do. He's a young lad. He showed a little bit, but it's because I believe he showed a little bit that he was sick because he cares so much about getting his career going, and he wants to be in the team all the time. He wants to start teams, and he knows the competition out wide. We've just gone in earlier in this program to say all the players that's available when Maxi isn't to play out wide. So he's got competition there, and he wants it to happen. And he had played well in the second half. Him and Wilson and Joelinton going into centre midfield is what changed the match completely against Brentford. And therefore, he would be pleased and think, I've put a marker down, perhaps to start at Aston Villa. And all of a sudden, he wrongly thinks, does the manager think I've been that ineffectual that I'm worth subbing when I'm just a sub? And
Yes.
it was totally a misunderstanding. It's a mountain out of a molehill. It'll have been forgotten within the club. A quiet word in his shell, like which will have happened on that night, and it'll be totally forgotten within the club. We're still talking about it. Fans are still talking about it, etc., etc. But I bet Eddie Howe and Anthony Gordon aren't anymore. That's buried, and that's yesterday.
Sure. And that's the best way to handle it.
Of course it is.
Bury it as quickly as you can. And it's always the manager's prerogative anyway. Even if there's a misunderstanding, hey, don't have a go.
Sure. The manager's always got the final say in anything. There's no question about that.
Yeah. And he's maybe got a slightly different bit of thinking going on than has crossed the players' minds.
Yeah, most definitely. Question for Gibbo: has he ever met any US presidents?
Well, there's a good question. I'm just trying to think whether they've had the pleasure of meeting me, but I'm not certain.
You must have met Jimmy Carter.
Eh?
Did you meet Jimmy Carter when he was here?
No, I didn't. When he tried to say, "Hey, where are the lads?"
Yes, I thought you might have pulled him up on it and met him in the town.
I was going to visit him on his peanut farm out there, but I thought, no, I won't bother. And when I went out to Atlanta with Glenn McCrory, and I thought, shall I pop in and see the press? And never ended up doing it. I know for just talking about presidents and Newcastle United, I know Paul Cannell, when he played for Washington Diplomats, tapped this, and he was a single young lad playing out there, tapped this lady in a nightclub and gave her his best Geordie accent and his best Geordie chat-up lines, and invited her out, etc., etc. And it was President Ford's daughter, which he didn't realize. He didn't realize at the time he did it, but it was. And I think she actually did go out with him. So Geordie boys rule.
Good Lord.
Cracking story. I knew you'd have a story about that. So good, always a good question to ask. Malcolm, what do you think? Who will be our priority signing in the summer? Who do you feel would make the biggest and most positive impact?
If we qualify for the Champions League, it's not just one signing. We are going to need half a dozen at least, and even that might not be enough. Should we sort of continue through the competition? But I do think that we need another goal scoring forward in the club.
Okay.
I think as Malcolm said, we'll end up signing several players for that very reason, that we are in the Champions League, and the squad. While we've talked about the depth of the squad recently, it's been in forward positions, like suddenly having two centre forwards fit and available in Wilson and Isak, and having the wide players and Joelinton, the extra body in midfield, etc., etc. But if we're in the Champions League, I mean, the club aren't going to sign one player; they're going to sign three. Or they're hopefully going to sign five. I think we do need a left back, because if you're going to go away to Real Madrid or Barcelona or Bayern Munich or Paris Saint-Germain, with utmost respect to Dan Burn, he's not your left back when their world-class players are going to be running at you. If he gets in the team, he's got to get in centre half. He's not a left back. And so we'll sign a left back.
And Target's not quick enough, I don't think.
Well, Target would be in the side now if he was rated by Eddie Howe, because we're playing an 8'6" centre half at left back. So if Target can't get in now, then Target won't get in as a regular next season. We will buy a left back, and I think that's important. But the club also think we need a defensive midfielder, an attacking midfielder, and somebody else up front, whether that's wide or through the middle. So yes, it's going to be 4 or 5 in the summer, but I am concerned. I know it's not the the blue chip position, and I know it's not what gathers the Sturs fans, but we need a left back. We need a left back. Dan Burn is done absolutely magnificent, but against all the odds, and he isn't a left back. He's not built as a left back. Trippier's built as a right back, but you know, the smaller, speedier, quicker guy, and he's too tall, too leggy, and one pace. If we're harsh, he's one pace. You know, and we're going to be harsh. I mean, I did an article this week, and I said that when the entertainers, and I was very much on the inside of that, as you know, Steve, when the entertainers were built, Keegan always said the most important signing was Kilcline, because he was the first brick in the wall. They played him, the centre half, got the defence sorted out, and then they went and got bigger players, more talented players than him. I mean, Philip Albert come in to play centre half way ahead of Killer. But without Killer, it wouldn't have all happened. And Killer's gone down in folklore because of what he did for Newcastle United. I think Dan Burn will go down in folklore, but he will be overtaken by quality. It is inevitable. If you get on a rocket and set off to the moon, then the people that built the rocket at the start aren't the people that land on the moon, like Armstrong. So it will be different, and it will be different. And part of that difference is that you need a left back, because Anthony ought to have took Burn to the cleaners when we played Manchester United, and for the first 10 minutes he did, just because of his pace. But he's such a show pony and everything. He just disappeared up his own trouser leg eventually, and it happened in the next game that he found it tough going as well. Dan, I love him because he's got a heart the size of a frying pan, etc., etc. But he's limited. He should next season. He should not be got rid of. We bought Chris Wood and jettisoned him quick because he did the job quick and got rid. I don't see that happening with Dan Burn. He will be allowed to be around next season and be cover for the two centre halves or whoever comes in there. And he's got a right to do that. But if he's left back next season, Malcolm, and we are in the Champions League, we've got a problem.
Yes, I totally agree with you, John. And one problem that I think I've seen with Dan Burn is when he first came into the side as a left back, he just did the very simple things, and he just defended, and didn't look to take part in much else of the game, and he just stuck to defending and keeping things secure. But as time went on and we were winning games, he seemed to grow more and more in confidence. But then came a point where I've really felt that all of a sudden he was looking in the mirror and thought, hey, I'm really a player now. And he's not. He is a defender, and he's got to think like a defender, and not as a footballing playmaker or whatever. And I just think he needs to get down to basics and stick to them. Stick to basics, and not try to play too much. He's given the ball away a bit too often these days, and
he's done terrific at left back against what all the thoughts I had.
Anyway.
No, I mean, I didn't think he would do it. And the interesting thing is, when you look at Eddie Howe, he is ready to change the midfield. He's ready to take Sean Longstaff out at half time. He's ready to move Joelinton from left wing into midfield. He's ready to leave Willock out on the odd occasion. He changes the front. He changes Isaac and Wilson almost all the time now. He changes the wide players because he's got Murphy and he's got Gordon and he's got Almiron coming back, etc., etc., etc. He's got Anderson, but he never changes his back four because he wants them to understand each other to play together all the time, and that understanding is absolutely crucial. The one time he changed the back four was Sheffield Wednesday in the FA Cup, and we got absolutely taken apart. So his back four and his goalkeeper are absolute sacrosanct. They're untouchable. And for the rest of this season, I would expect, bar a catastrophe or an injury, I would expect the back four and Pope to stay on block, and that includes Byrne. But the manager is still ruthless. When you listen to Eddie Howe's lovely, and he looks like Alan Jones. I mean, I think he should be in Songs of Praise on a Sunday because he would fit in perfectly. And when you listen to him in a press conference, everybody's a wonderful player. Everybody is the best possible for the team, for the squad, for Geordie fans, for the manager, for everybody that breathes black and white air. And then he sells them, which is what he did with Chris Wood. Chris Wood was fabulous, and then all of a sudden he wasn't there anymore. Shelby was fabulous, and then all of a sudden he wasn't there anymore. Lascelles is fabulous and is the team skipper, but all of a sudden he doesn't start anymore. That's what happens. And I think Byrne will see out this season at left back in let's be fair, the best defence in terms of goals conceded in the Premier League. But I don't think he'll be left back next season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting stuff as always.
Yes,
Go on, John. Go on, Malcolm. Go on,
Steve. I just saw that last comment there that Declan Rice would be a good signing. I read a fascinating article by Graham Souness, who played in the same position as Declan Rice, and Souness pretty much slaughtered him. And he picked all the faults out of the player, saying that he doesn't get forward enough, he doesn't take part in the attack enough. And I thought, and Souness he voiced all that I had been thinking, having watched Declan Rice over the time. He played very well against Newcastle United, but I didn't find him overly effective in terms of the attack and making and scoring goals.
All I would say about that, and I totally take the point, and about this, I saw that article, Malcolm, by Souness, and about Souness's opinion, because whatever he was as a manager, he was a wonderful, wonderful midfield player for Liverpool, Graham Souness, without a shadow of a doubt. However, I would say that, Graham talks about, and Graham was actually saying to be a world-class midfielder, and that's what he was saying. This fella falls short of being a world-class midfielder. But he's supposed to be, I know it, West Ham, you've got to do a bit of everything because they're at the bottom of the league and you've got to win the ball, you've got to carry it forward, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got to do that. But he's basically a defensive midfield player. Now, if we are going to buy a defensive midfield player, and we are, as well as an attacking one, then who is the defensive midfield players you would buy? Now, you could argue that we need one if you've got Joelinton, if you've got Sean Longstaff, but we're not that well off in midfield. We don't need extra bodies for the Champions League. But then you look at the defensive midfield players and say, would you buy, and by the way, I think that we won't get him because he might go to a London club like Arsenal or Spurs because he's a London lad. And they certainly Arsenal will be in the Champions League and possibly champions of this country. But if we want to sign a defensive midfield player, would you sign Declan Rice or would you sign Scott McTominay? Because they're two of the people that play defensive midfield and are there to be got.
There's just been a text discussing the very same subject of those two players. John, in all honesty, I thought McTominay was invisible when
against us,
against Newcastle. I really did, and I really don't know what the fuss is about with regards to this player.
The only thing I ever say is what I always say, that Newcastle have bought so well since Howe and the backroom staff have come in, and he's converted people that I thought hadn't a chance, like Almiron and Joelinton, into genuine Premier League players, that I'm a bit suspicious of saying, but I agree. On that particular night, McTominay and the midfield of Manchester United was absolutely outdone and overrun by the Newcastle midfield. But I must admit, even before McTominay failed his audition, if you like, against us, if you take money out of the equation and you take whether the player would want to come or not out of the equation, I would certainly sign Rice before I would sign McTominay.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, I would, but I really would like to see Rice getting around the penalty area. You know, at the moment it's all too deep for me.
But he's supposed to be a deep player, Malcolm. He's supposed to be a defensive midfielder.
Yes, I know, but you can still get there and take part, John. Mm-hmm. You know, look at Bruno, for heaven's sake. He scores goals. He scores more goals than Declan Rice.
But the idea is
we'll see Bruno in Newcastle's box when they're defending.
The idea being for next season, this is not my idea, this is the club's idea, is that they'll get a defensive midfield player to be able to sit there, to be able to release Bruno to do what he does, and to get up around the penalty area, the opposing penalty area, and try to finish. So the idea is somebody to do the defensive donkey work, if you like, which to a great extent Sean Longstaff has done a lot of.
Yes, he has, but it must not be in the style of Shelvey, because what Shelvey did was he sat back so deep that the back line couldn't get pushed up, and so we were just asking for trouble all the while. And there were times when Shelvey went and played behind the two centre halves, for heaven's sake.
Nobody these days plays in the style of Shelvey, bar Shelvey.
No, precisely, John.
Forest have found out, Malcolm. Forest fans have found out. They can't believe that they signed Shelvey and Chris Wood from Newcastle, because they say Newcastle saw Forest coming and took advantage, because they don't rate either of those players. And I'm not surprised they don't. I mean, thank goodness Shelvey isn't playing at Aston Villa on Saturday, because did you see the goal he gave away when he in Nottingham Forest, when he played in his own penalty area in Nottingham Forest, got the ball clean at his feet. He's supposed to be a passer, and he passed it brilliantly to an unmarked Aston Villa player in his own penalty area, who just tucked it away. And that was the decisive goal. I mean, somehow Nottingham Forest had kept it at 0-0 till that happened. And all of a sudden, once they're 1-0 down, good night. I mean, Forest away from home, are ludicrous. I mean, they are so bad away from home. But he could have got Cooper the sack.
Let's not forget as well, relegated sides do have a couple of really good midfielders. Potentially Southampton could go down. Ward-Prowse could be available. Cut Price and James Maddison, of course, could be available as well from Leicester, should they go down. So let's see what happens. Quick predictions then for the weekend. Newcastle away to Aston Villa, Saturday, 12:30 kickoff. John, your prediction?
Yeah, good question. I've been so thrilled with the way things have happened. I've just said we'll win every game we've been playing, and amazingly we have done. And it's been wonderful to see. This is a colossal test. It is a side right in form. Emery has won 11 of his 17 matches since he took over as manager. And he's won in the last 7 games. Villa have won 6 and drawn 1. Now, somebody pointed out to me, because there's, when you get a coin, there's always another side to the coin. However shiny the coin is, there's the opposite side to it. And somebody pointed out, and it is factually correct, that every point Villa have got since New Year's Day, all the wins and a couple of draws, have been against sides in the bottom half of the table. Other words, from 11 down to the bottom. When they've played the sides above that, and Newcastle above that, they haven't won. So perhaps they're not, they are a bit of a flat, bullies. Maybe, but I think they're better than that. And I think Emery's done a terrific job. It's so similar to the job done by Eddie Howe up here last season, taking you from a relegation position. It's gone. Now they're looking at Europe. What will they do next season? He's also put his arm around several players and told them how good they are and transformed them from being average under Gerrard to superb now in the way Eddie Howe has with Almiron and Joelinton. He's done it with Mings, who was stripped of the captaincy by Gerrard and is now looking a proper defender. He's done it with Ollie Watkins, who in his last 11 games has scored 9 goals. He's on fire because he's given a kiss and a cuddle and they tactically got things sorted. I think it's going to be a terrific match. I know Malcolm does, but I will be happy if we draw, because I think we'll beat Spurs up here in the next game, and that'll be significant because Spurs are around our feet. But this is more difficult. It will also stop Villa's run in case they've got outlandish ideas of still being able to catch us, which they won't do. But this is a bigger test now. Brentford was a test. They'd only lost Arsenal on their pitch till they played us, and they had Ivan Toney, who's rated as big as Ollie Watkins is. So that was tough. This is tougher, and I think it'll be a draw. And if it is a draw, I'll be well pleased with that.
Okay, 1-1, John.
Yep,
1-1, Malcolm.
Yeah, it's going to be a very, very tight game, very tight. But I'm looking at the Newcastle defence and saying you can stop this lot from scoring a goal without any shadow of a doubt. And so it's up to Newcastle to come up with a goal. And I think that somebody will. And I'm going to take Newcastle to win 1-0.
1-0. I'm going to go 2-1 again. Newcastle United to win 2-1 at the weekend. So 2 wins and a draw. Let's see what the weekend brings. Look forward, as always, to catching up with John and Malcolm to chew the fat next week. Take care, lads.
Indeed. Enjoy your football at the weekend, everybody.
Absolutely. Take care, fellas.